Now we will move on to step number 3 of the FAIRe workflow to verify your data using the FAIRe Metadata Verifier or FAIRe-fier. This tool was developed by Suki Yang from CSIRO's Information Management and Technology Group. We received a lot of positive feedback from people implementing FAIRe, and they said they found it both easy to use and also an essential step for identifying formatting errors. At this moment, FAIRe-fier checks only the project and sample metadata tables, and it does not yet validate the other tables, but we plan to expand its capabilities to cover all FAIRe data components in the future releases. Please follow along on your computer with your dataset, even if you only completed the project and sample metadata and not other components yet. I am now on the FAIRe website and going into the guidelines, available script and tools, and I find the FAIRe-fier here, and we'll click this web interface link and go into FAIRe-fier. These links are also available under this download tab as well. So I'm going to click here and it would open the FAIRe-fier. Now I'm going to upload a file here just by dragging it from my folder. You can also do it through this browse button. And please make sure the file is not open or it won't be uploaded properly. This Excel file, GBR2022 with errors. This file was shared with you along with other workshop materials. This is very similar to the demo dataset that we were using in the previous video, but with a few formatting errors intentionally made, so that you can see how FAIRe-fier spots these errors. Let's find it out by hitting the submit button. And now you can see a few messages here. Let's walk through it together. In this validation message window here, you can see that it was a success for the project metadata, so there was no warning error messages produced for this. On the other hand, for sample metadata, it failed, and it says please download the error and or warning files, review them, and correct any errors before resubmitting the data for validation. So let's do that now together. And the next window, we can see here the project metadata warning and error. There's nothing displayed. And for sample metadata, there's no warning, but there are a few errors listed here. You can check what they are by looking at this window here, but also you can download these outputs. So let's do this now. I'm going to click here and open this output. Here is the warning and error output file. As the project metadata didn't have any errors, we don't have anything listed here on the first two tabs, the warning and error for the project metadata. On the other hand, the sample metadata had few errors, so you can now see what they are in this tab. The last tab here is your sample metadata, where you can revise the errors. Errors are highlighted in these colors so that you can find them easily. This might look a bit different to the metadata that you uploaded, and that's because the first two rows about the requirement level and the section information have been removed. And that's the same for project metadata. Here, the first two columns have been removed, which were for the information again about the requirement level and the sections. Those columns and rows were inserted in the FAIRe-fier output for you to easily navigate the templates, but when you submit the data, you don't actually need them. So the output of FAIRe-fier actually don't have those rows and columns. Now let's take a close look at the sample metadata errors. So these are the errors that we got, and then the first column here is a sample name. So you can find if this error applies to all the samples that you had or for specific ones. The first error here is about event date. This is the entry that we had, one of the entries that we had, and then the type of the error is a value error. There are required date and time format, but perhaps we didn't follow it, so let's take a look. So now I'm going into the sample metadata revise tab and find what I put here. Event date, this looks right as an ISO format, but if you read a description of this term very carefully, then you'll find what was wrong with this. So now I'm going to open up the checklist to read the description. And that is open here. So event date is down at here, and in the description it says the timestamp needs to be year, date, month and date, capital T, and the time, plus minus with the time difference from UTC. If I look at what I entered, at the end here, I put plus 10 because it was 10 hours ahead. But in this description, you need to put hour and minute. So this is something that I have missed. So I'm going to put 00 here. And this one as well. And hopefully this is fixed now. Let's take a look at the next error, which is about geolog name. And we didn't have any input here. If we go into this tab here, you can also see that we didn't enter anything here. Geolog name, as you can see here in the sample metadata checklist, here's a geolog name, and it is a mandatory field. And this is why FAIRe-fier threw an error. So we need to put the value here. And the last one is a controlled vocabulary. So I'm going to use this term here. And so when in the previous video, we did enter this information, but I intentionally removed it just so that you can see what kind of error we receive. Now, the next message is about decimal latitude and longitude for blank samples. And again, we didn't have anything entered here. This decimal latitude, longitude are mandatory field. And even for these negative control samples, which didn't have any coordinates, we need to put a missing value vocabulary. So in this case, it's not applicable because it is a control sample. So now this mandatory field is all entered. And moving on to the next error, which is again about the blank samples and negative control type and a sample category. And you can find them here. And these are controlled vocabulary, but we didn't use the controlled vocabulary terms. So what were the controlled vocabulary terms? Let's find that out. This is the sample category, which is here. And controlled vocabulary, and these are the options. We want to use this negative control. I put intentionally this error wrong term, but so now it is a negative di water, but I'm going to put this negative control. That is one of the controlled vocabulary options. Same for this negative control type. Going back to this checklist, negative control type is a mandatory field if subcategory is a negative control, and the controlled vocabulary options are here. And in this case, this was the filter control, which is a process negative. So I'm going to use this term, copy paste into here. Now let's go into this error tab again and take a look at this last one, which is about the sample size for only one sample, site 1, shallow 1. And this was the input, and then there's an assertion error, so some sort of formatting assertion error. Let's take a look at this here. Subsize is a numeric variable, but I put a unit, capital L here, and this is why we got the error. So I'm going to remove this, and then in the next column here, subsize unit, I'm going to put L. Alright, so now all the errors should be corrected, and then it is ready to verify again. In order to verify whether we corrected all the errors or not, I'm going to save this file. So it's saved, and I go to the FAIRe-fier again. I will clear this. That was the previous one. And then I'm going to upload the file that I just saved. So this file has the warning and error tabs, but that's okay because FAIRe-fier only looks at the tabs named project metadata and sample metadata. So I'm going to hit this submit button, and now you can see the success for both metadata, which is great. Now you can download the output and open the file here, and these are the two tables without any error. This brings us to the end of the FAIRe-fier session. The next step, step number 4, is to map your FAIRe formatted data to repository-specific submission formats. The eDNA community has developed a number of tools for this purpose, including FAIRe to NCBI, FAIRe to eDNA, and FAIRe to MDT. Because this workshop is aimed at OBON community, which primarily works with the marine biodiversity data, you may find eDNA to OBIS most useful. It converts FAIRe formatted data into the OBIS submission format. In the next video, the NOAA team will demonstrate several FAIRe-related tools that they developed, including FAIRe sheets and eDNA to OBIS.